obviously for a podcaster, it's great because you're receiving sats for your content, so you're getting paid. But also you're receiving a lot more than that. You're receiving, the messages that people send you, which can be great for feedback or can be used for content within a subsequent episode. And also you're receiving analytics information. So, which episodes were supported the most, who's supporting you, the timestamps in the episode. So this is also really valuable for podcasters.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Changing the Tide. I'm your host, John Crabtree. Today, I welcome Oscar Mary, one of the co-founders of Fountain. Fountain is a podcasting app specifically for listeners that allows you to clip sections of podcasts that you listen to, and they've created an ecosystem, almost a social site that allows you to follow people, see those clips, and get the best of podcasts that the people around you are listening to really boost signal. And it also decreases the amount of time you actually have to listen to podcasts, because you can both distill the best podcasts that you're listening to down to the minutes or even seconds that really impacted you, and then everyone else around you is doing that too. And you can go in and listen to the best parts of the podcasts that both you and your friends are listening to. But even more than that, how they're changing the tide is that they are locking into the value block. So Podcast Index, podcastindex.org, Podcasting 2.0, this is where you get to stream sats to your favorite podcasters. And this is just going to unlock an incredible amount of value for podcasters, because they get to receive not only sats in a streaming or a one-time boost way, but they also get to receive messages. And there's other things that Podcasting 2.0 allows for, newer tags and that sort of thing. But the real tide changer is streaming sats. And so that's exciting. They're bringing that to podcasting. I really think you're going to enjoy Oscar, so let's get to it. Oscar, welcome to the show.
Hey, John. Great to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to talk with you about Podcasting 2.0 and how Fountain fits in there. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about Fountain, Oscar.
Yeah. So Fountain is a podcast app which lets you create and share clips from the podcast you're listening to. And then also within Fountain, you can support your favorite podcast with Bitcoin over the Lightning Network. So you can set a per minute stream value. So you could set, 50 sats per minute, 100 sats per minute, or however much, depending on how generous you're feeling. And then you can also send a boost, which is like a tip, where you send a custom amount along with a message as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. Out of curiosity, when did you found Fountain? How long has it been around?
Yeah, so we've been around since about June of this year, 2021. And we launched on iOS and Android end of July or beginning of August. I can't remember exactly.
Awesome. I mean, 2 years ago, this idea of streaming sats was almost a dream. And here we are, 2021, and it's reality. What brought you into this specific part of, let's say, the Lightning Network?
Yeah, so Fountain actually started primarily around the clipping mechanism. So me and my business partner, Nick, both had or saw this problem within podcasting around, for me personally, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and every day when I look at my feed, I actually have too much to listen to. There's too many episodes. There's probably about 10 hours a day of content that comes through that I'd love to listen to, but obviously I don't have time for that. So we created the clipping experience within Fountain primarily to try and solve that problem, with the idea being that instead of listening to every single episode, you could maybe just listen to the best moments from some episodes. And those best moments would be curated by the people that you follow within Fountain. The idea being that, some episodes you're going to listen to the whole thing because it's one that's really interesting to you, or maybe the guest is really interesting for you. But then other episodes, maybe not so much, but you might be able to still get the core insight by listening to a clip. So that was where we started with Fountain, and it's still a massive part of what we're doing. At the same time, we kind of joined the Podcasting 2.0 movement, which was created and is led by Adam Curry and Dave Jones. And their goal is to preserve the open nature of podcasting through open RSS. And part of the new standard that they've put forward is the value block, which enables any podcast creator or any podcast app to interact with each other over the Lightning Network. So when we saw that as part of the spec, I've been a massive believer in Bitcoin for a long time. And when we saw that, we were like, yes, this is a no-brainer. We're definitely doing that. And we kind of worked to make that a massive part of the Fountain experience.
Awesome. So the idea was that, hey, I've got this huge feed of podcasts that's coming in every day and content. I mean, podcasts are growing by the day. A new one seems to be popping on. I'm guilty, every every day, especially recently. And so, how do you curate that down and distill it to the most important, maybe clips? And then you also became aware of the value block on Podcasting 2.0. And here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say, I think the best signal that you can get about what's important in a podcast episode or which episodes are important are from the people that you follow. And so that's why a big part of the Fountain clipping experience is the ability to share the clips outside of Fountain. So we turn every clip into a little audiogram video, which I'm sure you've seen other podcasts using to promote their show. We just give that same ability to the listener, so that if you hear something amazing in an episode you're listening to, you can share that externally on social media or in a DM or however you'd like, really.
I've seen a few people do that. In fact, I think there was one that someone posted on Twitter I think it was a rabbit hole recap with Matt Odell and Marty Bent. And I think it was like a minute-long clip, but it was great because I couldn't catch that one. So at least I got something from that episode.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole premise, is that life happens. Everyone's busy. Everyone has busy days. Sometimes you're just not going to get to the episodes, but maybe one of your friends or somebody that you follow, they'll catch that episode and they'll highlight the best bit for you, so that at least you get probably what they think is the best insight from that hour or 2 hours or however long the episode is.
That's great. Okay, so since you started and got into iOS and Android, you have this unique insight into just the podcasting space in general, and specifically this 2.0. So what has the growth been like from your vantage point, not only at Fountain, but you're also part of this movement? Has there been a pretty big acceleration, let's say, in people adopting podcasting 2.0?
Yeah, I think podcasting 2.0 has a lot of different parts to it, and it means different things to different people. So you have obviously the value block, which is one part of the spec, is in the Bitcoin community massive. Everybody loves that, and that's like a big reason for people to switch their podcast apps, which is quite a challenging thing to get people to do. But there's also other parts to podcasting 2.0, like there's new tags around, funding or chapters or location or person. And these are things that some hosting providers are looking to add. So I think, podcasting 2.0 means different things to different people. I think for us, the value block and the lightning payments has had the biggest impact. The challenge we have though is anybody that's already interested in Bitcoin, who maybe already has tried out a Lightning wallet, maybe have a Lightning wallet on their phone, for them to set up on Fountain and start sending sats to podcasters is quite easy because they've done it before. Whereas for your average podcast listener that maybe has heard about Bitcoin but is not that into it, for them to go through the whole process of first buying Bitcoin, then getting Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, then transferring it through the wallets, like that's quite a big UX challenge, and that's something that's a bit of a struggle. So for us, we're having success with people in the Bitcoin community, but outside of that is where I think the real growth will be, which will be, can we improve the UX around that first onboarding step to the Lightning Network? But luckily, that's something that a lot of people are facing at the moment. It's not just us. It's not just the podcasting vertical. Everybody wants that to be easy and more easy than it currently is. So I think that those challenges around UX will get solved over time.
The idea being that not only for, Fountain specifically, but for just Lightning in general, onboarding people not only to Bitcoin, but then, hey, this is the difference between a Bitcoin wallet and a Lightning wallet. And this one allows for more, the latter one allows for near instant, near fee, money transfer capabilities. But getting people to that step takes a lot of education. Is that kind of what you're referring to there?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I think the way that it needs to go is we need to actually remove all mention of Bitcoin and Lightning, and we just need to, onboard people to the use case, which in our case is supporting your favorite podcast while you listen. But there's plenty of other use cases for, as you say, instant and near free micropayments. So yeah, I think it's just how quickly can you get sats into a brand new user's wallet and allow them to actually do the thing that they want to do.
Because from there, it's just setting the amount that they're going to transfer per minute, right? I mean, once the sats are in there, they just hit the control button and say, this is what I want to send, or as a one-time payment.
Exactly, yeah. Once the sats are in the wallet, it's easy from there. It's that first step that's the challenge.
Yeah, it might be because Bitcoin, at least in US dollars, is, something like $58,000 right now. And there's not just the problem of the user experience, but there's unit bias. Oh, why don't I just buy this other coin because it's $100 or pounds or whatever, their currency unit is.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so let's rewind it a little bit, Oscar. I'm really curious your Bitcoin origin story, your journey. How did you come across Bitcoin, and when did it really click for you?
Yeah, I came across Bitcoin relatively early, I think in like 2013 or 14, and got some Bitcoin luckily, but it didn't click with me back then. It was kind of an accident. Just listened to somebody else who told me, hey, you should get some of this, and I did, and then forgot about it for years, and then it really kind of clicked with me probably around the 2016, 2017. I think reading the Bitcoin Standard had a massive impact on me, and that was when I really started to pay attention and invest more in learning about it and going in deeper.
That's awesome. The Bitcoin Standard was pretty influential for me as well.
Yeah.
Although it took a couple of readings because there's quite a bit in there to maybe not. It's not that it's complex information, but it's maybe something you haven't learned elsewhere, and so you want to digest it a few times. So, were you working as a developer then, Oscar, before then, or?
Yeah, so I've been a developer, most of my for the past, yeah, for a long time now. So yeah, I hadn't done too much mobile development before Fountain. So that was a bit of a learning curve, but yeah, it's been a great experience so far, and I think we're getting there with the app. We just had a release yesterday actually that has a bunch of new features. So we've now got the ability to share web links for both shows and episodes. We've got a sleep timer now, which is not something that I personally use, but a lot of people do enjoy listening to podcasts as they're falling asleep. We've got import OPML as well. So if you're using another podcast app, you can just transfer your entire library through into Fountain. And we've also had a bunch of fixes to all of the like core listening experience, the audio loading, things like that. So yeah, we're trying to improve the experience every week, and we're getting there slowly in terms of building like a really amazing listening experience.
That's fantastic. I get you right after a release, so podcasters love that. Hey, breaking news here. As far as this show is, changing the tide. It's about how Bitcoin and Lightning are a gravitational force, and as more and more people adopt it, it's leading to greater freedom, potentially greater prosperity, maybe even greater fun. It's fun to be a Bitcoiner. And so it's very interesting to hear you talk about there's this massive information. And so not just in the podcasting space, but elsewhere in just the informational space, it's freeing up people's time to accept the best signal from like specific people they listen to without having to dive deep every time, on that, 24-hour news cycle. The internet is ubiquitous. You can connect it almost at any time. And so I really see what you're doing as changing the tide, because it's bringing, in a way, freedom of information. Do you have any thoughts on that yourself, like as far as what you guys are trying to do?
Yeah, that's exactly how I think about it. There's a couple of points there. So, one thing is we're trying to, in a way, reduce the barrier to acquiring certain information, certain knowledge, certain insights, because, again, due to the long form nature of podcasts, if somebody recommends a podcast, either an episode or a particular show, why do you recommend podcasts to people? It's so that it's because you've learned something from that podcast, and you want to share that with someone else. You want them to go through the same learning experience that you have. The problem is the barrier's very high, because you're asking them to go back and take an hour and a half, 2 hours out of their already very busy schedule to go back in time to listen to this long episode. And so it's our belief that stops a lot of people from taking that action. Whereas if you can just say, hey, the best part of this episode is this 2-minute clip. This will give you a taste of what's in this episode, and it'll give you like the high level overview. Check this out, just 2 minutes of your time. And then if that sparks your curiosity, then you can go and listen to the full episode. So I think on the one hand, it is reducing the barrier to actually go and share that knowledge and that insight, and acquire that knowledge and insight. That's one aspect of it. And then the second aspect is the kind of composability of content from within podcasts. So one of the features we have in Fountain is clip playlists. So for example, I have a couple of playlists. I have one playlist on Bitcoin, and I have another playlist on podcasting 2.0. And they contain clips from multiple episodes over the past year as we've been working on Fountain. And so that's another way to introduce certain topics or certain areas of knowledge to people rather than saying, hey, go and spend, if you ask the average person, the average Bitcoiner, how many hours of content they've listened to about Bitcoin on podcasts, it would be, I'm sure it's a huge number. And so when you are talking to somebody new about Bitcoin, and it could be any topic, by the way, but let's use Bitcoin as an example. When you're talking to somebody new, are you really expecting them to go back and go through the exact same journey that you did, listening to, potentially hundreds of hours of content to arrive at the same level of knowledge that you have? Like that's an unfair ask. So if you can compose the best bits, put them in a playlist and effectively say, here's a shortcut. Listen to all of these aspects, the bits that you understand from the clips. Okay, great. Just leave it there. And then for bits that you don't necessarily understand, you can dig into the actual episode because all of our clips allow linking straight back into the episode. So yeah, it's really about, number one, reducing the barrier to share those moments from podcast content, and number two, adding composability so you can be more creative in the way that you share it.
Wow, yeah, that's really fascinating, and the playlist concept. So, what is on Oscar Mary's Bitcoin playlist on his Fountain app?
Well, I would say download Fountain, and you can go and check out my profile and listen there. But I'll just pull it up now and see what kind of stuff is on there.
That's fantastic. I love that people can actually go in and look you up and see your playlist.
Yeah. So yeah, I have like why you should use a hardware wallet, for example, a clip on that. Why every fiat currency is debasing, a clip on that. Why altcoins don't make sense, a clip on that. The difference between Bitcoin, the asset, and Bitcoin, the network, the security benefits of Schnorr Taproot, how Bitcoin mining with flare gas is a net benefit to the environment. These are just little things that I've picked up that I think are useful to know. And they're not just headlines, because they come from podcasts. You still maintain that kind of like in-depth side to the conversation and the content, which I think is beneficial for people, because if you just send them a headline from an article, people don't have too much trust in that.
Yeah, but if they can hear real voices, people who are in it and answering some of these very interesting questions. Bitcoin touches on so many fields of knowledge, and so, boy, if I can distill a bunch of those into my Fountain app and have a quick, not quick, I want it to be deep, but also a quick way to reference and kind of support a thesis I'm building on Bitcoin with maybe someone who doesn't understand it or who is interested. That's powerful. And so, well, okay, so kind of fast forwarding back here to 2021, what is it about Lightning in 2021 that really helped you and your business partner be very sure that like transferring value via Lightning was something you wanted to enable in your app?
Yeah, I think two reasons primarily. One, I think for the use case of sending financial value on a per minute basis for a podcast, there's not many other options for that. So it's really perfect for our use case. And then secondly, I think we felt that we feel that this is going to be adopted in every vertical eventually. Like a way I like to think about it is if you look at your phone home screen now, every app that you use over the next 5 years will probably be replaced by some kind of Lightning enabled version of that app. They'll either be replaced or they'll introduce it. So I think we didn't see it as too much of a risk. We feel like we're joining a an inevitable tide of Lightning adoption. So for that reason, it wasn't really a risk.
Yeah. I think you guys got a shout out, by the way, in one of Lightning Labs' newsletters recently. I think it was a couple months back.
Yeah.
So kudos to you guys. That's a big shout out as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a help, and that's the cool thing about this community is everybody is helping everybody, and yeah, whether it's a shout out or whether it's technical help or whether it's just feedback on product or service, I think everyone's very helpful in this community, and that does so much for how quickly you can move and also making decisions about what to add next. Like all of the features in the latest release that I talked about are all user requests. They're all driven by people testing out the app and being very patient with how early it was at the beginning, and just letting us know, hey, I'm using Fountain because I love Lightning and I want to support companies working with Lightning, but here's the 3 things I need for this to become my regular podcast app. And when people ask that, we'll build it. So yeah, if anyone's listening who has any feedback about Fountain, please do send me an email, and happy to build whatever you want into the app.
Nice. I get your regular reminders to get started on podcasting 2.0 via the Fountain Twitter handle. So I need to hop on myself here with this show. So and that is a cool thing for viewers and listeners. Oscar and I are going to do a bit of a demonstration after offline, and he just offered to do that. So that speaks volumes, I think, Oscar, about just you trying to serve the space too. So let's talk a little bit about open RSS then too, because that's a bit of that increasing freedom proposition, I think, through Bitcoin, but also on open RSS, where you might say something that let's say someone at a legacy media company doesn't like, and all of a sudden you're not invited back. You're not getting the word out there. But it sounds like with open RSS, beyond the value block, it's really trying to influence freedom of information. Is that online or in line with the goals there?
Yeah, 100%. I think the great thing about open RSS is, as a podcaster, you can take your RSS with you, your RSS feed with you from platform to platform. So if you want to switch hosting providers, or if you want to ask your listeners to switch podcast apps, it's really easy for you to switch as a podcaster, and also for your listeners to switch apps as well. That's just great because it benefits the end consumer, because there's lots of competition. I think maybe in the past, the criticism for open RSS has been that the feature set compared to some of the closed social media, for example, YouTube specifically, the feature set hasn't been there. But I think open RSS is catching up, and yeah, I think the future looks really bright for open RSS.
How has it caught up specifically, Oscar? Do you have some examples there?
Yeah, I think a great example, a very simple example, is the chapters tag within podcasting 2.0. So chapters allows you as a podcaster to specify just mini break points within each episode so that a listener can more easily navigate to a specific part of the podcast, but also view additional contextual information about that part of the episode. So you can have links in each chapter, you can have custom images for each chapter. So if you're talking about a particular thing, you can add the link in there, and then from the podcast app, if the app supports it, you can just click the link and go straight out. That's an example of excuse me, something that has been possible on YouTube for a long time, but now it's possible on OpenRSS as well.
That's fantastic. That's a great use case, I think, from YouTube, but now in a much more open environment.
Yeah, exactly. And if you, the great thing about the way that works is you create your chapters once as a podcaster, and they're available on multiple apps. And if you switch hosting platforms, as long as they support the spec, which they should, then your chapters will still be available. It's not like you have to go into a different system and recreate everything from scratch.
So in a way, let's say Fountain, let's call it as a little more feature rich potentially than say some of the other podcasting apps.
I think we're getting there. We're still quite early, but we're trying to do two things at once. One, we're trying to deliver feature parity with other podcast apps, which we're almost there with. And then we're also trying to introduce newer features that differentiate us around the clipping and the playlist that I talked about, and of course the Lightning payments. So yeah, we're getting there. Yeah,
maybe I'll say this: more unique. You have a more unique feature set than your average podcasting app allows. Yeah, and you're working very quickly. I mean, July to November, that's 4 or 5 months. I think you guys are, if you're catching up in that amount of time, that's pretty awesome. Or on your way, I should say. So Oscar, what are you, maybe when you look out over 2022, because we're, coming to the end of 2021 here, what's something over the course of 2022 that you guys are really excited about there at Fountain?
Yeah, I would say the thing that I'm most excited about is making it easier for brand new podcast listeners to onboard onto the Lightning Network. That is something that I think will be amazing for Lightning. It will be amazing for Bitcoin. It will be amazing for podcasters because more podcasters will be earning through their podcast. And obviously it will be beneficial to Fountain as well because it will just make that initial onboarding much easier. So that's the thing that I'm most looking forward to. Like, I think my kind of dream scenario here is you'll be able to open Fountain as a new user, and then whether it's through Apple Pay or Google Pay, you'll just be able to, top up your wallet there and then within the app. And I think, I think we'll get to something like that in 2022. Not sure exactly how, but we're getting there.
Yeah, man, that would be the dream. Google Pay, Apple Pay, top up your Lightning wallet and get started. Okay, so onboarding new users to the Lightning wallet. What are some of the biggest challenges there? We kind of glossed over that at the beginning. UX and UI design challenges. What needs to be overcome, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a few different things. I think one of the difficulties is the steps to acquire Bitcoin on the Lightning Network are just, quite difficult at the moment. So we've actually written a guide that's on our blog at fountain.fm/blog. And the way we recommend people right now to who are brand new to Bitcoin and Lightning is to use Blue Wallet to buy Bitcoin on the Lightning Network through their MoonPay integration. So this obviously, it only requires two apps, Blue Wallet and Fountain, and then the Lightning. I don't think the Lightning invoice system is too difficult to understand. But I think the challenge with this approach is there's three kind of entities involved. There's Fountain, there's Blue Wallet, and then there's MoonPay. And for MoonPay, you do have to do a kind of light, you do have to like create an account with them and stuff. So, the concept of topping up within Fountain but having to go through two other entities, that's just something that's a bit, people aren't used to that, especially for an app that's just about content, So that's the challenge in terms of, that's the simplest way that we have right now. And if anyone's listening or watching that knows of a better way, please do get in touch. But that's the current way we recommend.
It changes people's paradigm, right? Because their paradigm is, I pay a subscription fee, I input my credit card info, maybe it draws every month. That's how I consume content. And it's done maybe inside of one app, whether you're doing it on your Apple TV or Roku or something along those lines, or on your phone, Disney Plus, you could name them all. So in a way, this is a paradigm shift, even more than a UX problem.
Yeah, I think the shift is easy though. Even though you're right, it's a paradigm shift in the way that people pay for content, and they're not even really paying for the content; they're just paying after the fact, or it's an optional payment through the value for value model. But I think once you've seen the shift, it's easy to understand. The problem is, how do you allow brand new users to experience it without having to go through all of the UX hurdles that we've talked about? Because I think one of the interesting things about it is, obviously for a podcaster, it's great because you're receiving sats for your content, so you're getting paid. But also you're receiving a lot more than that. You're receiving, the messages that people send you, which can be great for feedback or can be used for content within a subsequent episode. And also you're receiving analytics information. So, which episodes were supported the most, who's supporting you, the timestamps in the episode. So this is also really valuable for podcasters. But one of the interesting things is actually also really, the feeling for the listener is really nice as well, because you feel like when you're sending that message, because it's attached to financial value, you feel like the podcaster is really going to pay attention to that.
Yeah, and they probably are. They're getting the hardest money ever known from someone who took time out of their day to listen to you.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Like I see my YouTube viewers, and the plan is to get this RSS situation set up and get that out to the podcasting apps, including Fountain. But you're now a platform that has two sides. You're a two-sided platform. You have podcast creators, content creators, and you're bridging the gap between them and podcast listeners. And so it's very interesting. You guys there at Fountain have design challenges to really make the best experience for both. How has that been?
Yeah, I think primarily we've just been focused on the listener. So I think everything we do right now is primarily for the listener and making that amazing podcast listening experience. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do that job well, then people aren't going to use us. We have to be an amazing listening experience and deliver everything people want from that first. And then we can start thinking about the other side. But yeah.
At least you're hooking into an open protocol though that allows the content creator to receive value. So that's a big win for them. So yeah, I mean, as far as just Fountain in general, and I guess problems you're trying to solve beyond, let's say, the Lightning onboarding experience, which is just an inherent part of, since you're tapping into that. What are some other things that you maybe hope to bring to podcast listeners, maybe that aren't on the radar yet? Like any dreams? I'm not asking for promises and timelines here, but things you're excited about bringing, Fountain users.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. One, so the way we do clipping on Fountain is through the transcript. And this means that when you create a clip, rather than messing around with the audio wave or setting a like start time, end time, we show you the transcript in blocks and allow you to highlight the text for the part that you want to create a clip from. And we feel that this is a much easier way to create a clip. So that makes things a lot easier. However, we're currently using a commercial transcription provider, so it does cost us a little bit. And for that reason, we only transcribe the episode when you hit the clip button. So one of the things we want to do is roll out our own transcription functionality so that we can auto transcribe everything for people. So that will just make it much easier to create clips. That's one thing that we're looking at.
Wow. So let's back up there, because that's huge, and a way different experience than what most, let's say, content creation platforms will allow. How did the idea of clipping from the transcription come about as opposed to the actual file?
Yeah, I think that, I think it probably came from trying to create clips from podcasts with other apps that had the audio waveform as the way to do it. I think the problem with doing it that way is it means that you're holding too much information in your head. So if you're doing it through the audio wave, you have to be thinking about in your head, okay, what's the timestamp that I'd like to start this clip at? What did they say at the start at that timestamp? What's the end timestamp when they stop talking about the thing that I want to clip? And what did they say in between those things? And you have to like add all of that up in your head as you're, either changing the start time, end time, re-listening to it. And it's just difficult to do. It just takes a lot of brain power. It's confusing. It's very easy to mess up and create a clip that's not really contextual, doesn't work on its own. So yeah, it's just a difficult thing to do. Whereas with the transcript, everybody's used to reading text and highlighting it on a screen. So it just makes it much, much, much easier to think about in your head. In fact, all you have to think about is which part of the clip you want, and then you just select it. So yeah, much easier.
It's like you're in my head, Oscar, when I'm clipping my own and making like an intro. It's very difficult. I do it from the video side, but which even adds another layer,
Yeah.
What's the facial expressions? What, is this actually, when you add in everything visually too, something that I want people to see? Or is there a better option? So the transcript, that really distills it.
Yeah, exactly. And it also means that you can come back to it. Like you don't have to do it straight away as well. Like you can have confidence that, let's say you're like, for example, for me, I quite often will be cycling because I live in London in the UK, I cycle to work, so I'll be cycling, listening to a podcast, and obviously I can't create a clip as I'm cycling, but I know that it will be easy for me to go back and find the moment that I want to clip because all I have to do is look through the transcript, which is much easier than effectively like re-listening to the episode, skipping back a couple of minutes, listening to it, and thinking, "Is this the bit that I wanted?" So yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier.
That's amazing. Okay, so for the lightning, for the person on the other side, the me's of the world, the content creators who are able to accept lightning payments, whether they're streaming or one-time lump sums. What are the options node-wise? Like, are you guys handling that? Are they able to do it straight to their own node through Fountain? What does that look like?
Yeah, so if you have your own Lightning node, you can do it all yourself. That's the beauty of this system. So Fountain does not own this system or does not have any control over this. All you have to do as a podcaster is take the node address of your Lightning node and put that in your RSS feed. So you could do this completely self-hosting everything. You could self-host the RSS feed, you could use your own node, and you could just connect them up by putting the node address in the RSS feed. So yeah, it's super easy, super flexible. Obviously, the one thing that you need on top of that is to understand some of the data that goes along with each Lightning payment, and that's where Fountain can help. But there's also for some of the other node providers have scripts that will help you do this as well.
And that information specifically, Oscar, that you would want to know, what would that be?
Yeah, so that would be like episode information. What episode was it that the payment came through? App information. Which app was this sent through? Was it from Fountain? Was it from another Podcasting 2.0 app? The timestamp, what minute was this transaction sent at? So you can see as a podcaster, okay, people were sending sats up until, minute 30 and maybe they got bored or stopped listening. So Fountain will send the username as well. So you can literally see like who's sending you the payments. What else do we have? Obviously the messages, if somebody wants to send a custom message along with a boost. So yeah, all of that data is really useful to you as a podcaster.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, when I look at YouTube views, that tells me very little, and also likes. You can give a thumbs up on that, but that doesn't give you much beyond the fact that someone gave you a thumbs up at some unknown time in the middle of somewhere in your podcast. Was that 2 seconds in and then they clicked out and left? And same with
exactly.
like podcast comments, right, on Apple or Spotify.
Exactly.
So, well, this is really interesting. The idea that you can know an episode, a timestamp, when that came from. You're really facilitating an open. I mean, the open RSS standard is really helping content creators refine their craft, like to minute details.
Yeah, exactly. I think you get so much. You can get so much feedback from your listeners. I think one thing that's really important is to actually talk about this on your podcast. So, make it part of your show. Have a segment at the end or the middle or whenever you want it. Have a segment that goes through and reads out all of the messages that you've received through these boosts, and thank the people that have sent you them, and even if you can ask them for questions or feedback. And I think that's another really important part of the education part. Like Fountain can do our best to educate listeners about the benefit of this, but really it does come down to the actual podcaster to ask for these messages and to ask for a few sats as well.
Yeah. I mean, one that I listen to is Tales from the Crypt Rabbit Hole Recap. I mean, Matt and Marty are constantly talking about, questions that have come in, thanking people for, the money that's been sent in, because I think they're on the value for value platforms now. And so just those shout outs, it also makes the listener feel very cared for, I think, in that way. Well, Oscar, overall, it's been awesome having you on here. I'd love for you to be able to plug where people can find Fountain, where they can find you specifically. Where should they go?
Yeah, easiest place to go is fountain.fm. That's the site, and you can download Fountain on iOS and Android there. And yeah, the one thing I'd love is just if anyone checks out Fountain and has any feedback about the app, I'd love to get your feedback. So you can just send me an email, oscar@fountain.fm, and yeah, would love to hear if there's anything that frustrated you or annoyed you about the listening experience or just anything else. Would love to get feedback. So yeah, fountain.fm, or email me at oscar@fountain.fm.
Awesome. Well, Oscar, thanks for coming on, and it's been a pleasure. Can't wait to see Fountain continue to grow.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, John. I really appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Isn't Oscar a gem? So fun to have him on, and it's incredible to see him go from just launching in iOS and Android in July, and now they have some of the biggest Bitcoin podcasts who are accepting streaming sats. And so you just can't underestimate how much value that is going to unlock in the ecosystem. And it's a two-sided market, right? You've got podcasters, and they are able to receive sats in a streaming fashion or a one-time lump sum boost. And then on the other side, podcast listeners who they don't have enough time in the day to listen to all their podcasts. So the ones that they do listen to, they can distill down for their social interactions on Fountain. And everyone else on there can be seeing all of the different people that they follow. And those clips of episodes that they couldn't get to distilled down into some of their friends' most important, and the amount of signal that creates. So if you feel led, please, I am now on Fountain and Changing the Tide. I can now receive streaming sats. And if you're an avid listener or even just interested in supporting, I would love to receive sats, of course, but even your messages too. What can I improve? Feedback. Always looking to make this show as great as it can be, and as we just continue to change the tide towards greater freedom, prosperity, and fun worldwide through Bitcoin on Lightning. Thanks again to Oscar for coming on. Excited to see what he and Nick there at Fountain do, and then in the general space, Adam Curry and the rest of the Podcast Index team. Just super excited to see what comes over the next few years now that podcasters can receive Bitcoin on Lightning. It's changing the tide. For the rest of you people out there listening, keep on changing the tide, and we'll see you on the next one.